conversation lifeboat. We hang on to that. Because if we don't find a subject to talk about, there would be an awkward silence. Or we wouldn't talk at all. But what happens when we talk about, even if the conversation is nice, if we talk about just one subject, even at the end, if we exchange phone numbers, we are unlikely to connect and call each other after the event. Because we did not talk about each other, we just talked about cats. I was intending dogs, but we talked about cats. All right? Now, so what should we have done instead? Instead, we should have done what friends do. What do friends do? When friends come together, either one-on-one or in groups, they have a general conversation that flows from topic to topic smoothly. When a conversation flows from topic to topic smoothly, either in a business network event or an outdoor event, people connect better. They build deep connection. And they're much more likely to want to connect with each other, network with each other after the event. And why is this? Because they don't get stuck on one subject, they talk about a variety of subjects, they have a nice conversation, and they talk about each other. Now, this happens automatically between friends. It may happen automatically when you meet a person. But if it's not happening automatically, there is a mechanism to make it happen. And what is that mechanism? That mechanism is conversational threads or hooks. A conversational thread or hook is, such a thread or hook is a word or a group of words in the conversation that you can take to move the conversation to another subject. For example, let's say that you went to New York last month and you came and started telling me about it. You said, I went up the Statue of Liberty, I went up Empire State Building, I went around Manhattan, and then the conversation seems to be dying. But I don't want an awkward silence. I don't want the conversation to finish. I want to continue with you. I want to continue the conversation and connect with you. I have my own time here. Now, what I can do is I can take the words in your conversation. For example, Empire State Building is a hook. The Statue of Liberty is a hook. Manhattan is a hook. For example, I could say, did you know that the French gave the Statue of Liberty as a gift to the Americans? Or I could say, I read about the Empire State Building in the encyclopedia. Did you know that at the top the rain sometimes goes upwards? What did I do? For the conversation not to end, I took some of the words, the hooks in your conversation, and continued the conversation to another subject. If when you meet people you see that the conversation is coming to a dead end, if you do that, you can continue the conversation and you build deep connection. And you are much more likely to call each other and connect after the event. So what happened here? Okay, all right. Okay, 5. Breaking rapport at a low point. What does that mean? What does that mean? That means conversations, just like waves in the sea, have peaks and troughs. Peaks and troughs. They get exciting, boring. Exciting, boring. Most people, when they meet somebody in a hiking event or business networking event, they talk as long as the conversation is interesting. They wait for the conversation to die, to get boring, there's an awkward silence, and then they say, it was nice meeting you, we'll see you later, bye-bye. What happens? That person remembers that you left when there was nothing else to talk about, when the conversation got boring, and will not be looking forward to meeting you during the event or after the event. What you should have done is to leave the conversation at a high point. For example, let's say that you meet a person and you find out that you are both Fenerbahce fans. So you start engaging in a very exciting conversation about Fenerbahce. You should leave the conversation before it gets boring. And then go talk to somebody else. Go talk to somebody else. But each time leave the conversation at a high point before it gets boring. In fact, in Turkish, we have a saying. Sohbeti tadında bırakın. Why do you think? Why do you think? In TV series, they cut the series at an exciting point. So that we will wonder what's happening and we will want to watch the next episode. It's the same in conversations. Don't wait for the conversation to get to a low point to leave the conversation. Of course, not in a abrupt way. Shut up now, I'm leaving the conversation. No, not that way. In a gentle way. Because leave him wanting more. He'll be wanting you to come back. And during the same event, you can come back to the same person. And you can do that with multiple people instead of waiting for the conversation to get go dead. If you leave the conversation at a high point, you'll be much more likely to connect after the event. Okay, that's the other stage. Hold down. Yes, looking for common points, common interests. Now, in business networking and social events, we often try to associate with people, and we think, common sense tells us, that we connect better with people with whom we have common interests. Right? Wrong. Huh? Yeah. Let's say, excuse me, what's happening here?
We're actually commenting because we're really into it.
Really?
Yeah, we have tons of questions.
So let me take another sip of water.
It's all about you, Rasih.
So, let's say I walk into a social event or business networking event, and I'm interested in basketball, my children, and salsa. Now, she likes salsa, I talk to her. He likes basketball, I talk to him. You like jazz, I talk to you. What did I say? Whatever. Now, if we limit our conversation, and then let's say that we talk about all common interests all during the whole event, but after the event, we don't call each other. What happened? What happened is that talking about common interests only builds surface connection. It does not build deep connection. In order to be able to build deep connection with the people, deep emotional connection, we need to be able to talk to each other and listen to each other about topics that are not common interests as well. For example, let's say that you want to talk to me about your children. You're a parent, and I'm not. And when you talk to me about your children, I say, no, come on, don't talk to me about children. I'm not a parent. Let's talk about Cuba salsa. I mean, we're both interested in Cuba salsa. That's ridiculous. And that's disrespectful. And let's say that I'm interested in astrology, and you can give a heck about astrology. You don't believe in astrology. I tell you about astrology, say, Russ, you don't talk to me about this nonsense. I don't believe in astrology. That's also disrespectful. I mean, we might have talked about common interests, but the moment we start talking about things that are not common interests, if we don't listen to each other, we're not respecting each other, we're not connecting deeply. And that's one of the mistakes that people make in business networking and social networking. We should not be talking to each other only about common interests, but also about matters that are not common interests. For example, I say, okay, he's not interested in jazz, I'm interested, why should I talk to him? I'm interested in race cars, he's not interested in race cars, why should I talk to him? And what some of us do is to look for, okay, I'm interested in basketball, jazz, I will only talk to people who are interested in basketball and jazz. What happens is that I'm limiting my network, making it really small. I'm pushing away all the people with whom I don't have common interest. That means that we should never limit our conversations to common interest. Otherwise, we don't connect, and we don't call each other after the event. My favorite. Talking too long to the same person and not listening. Okay, from this, now I need a lady volunteer to come here. Okay, Jennifer.
Come on, Jennifer.
Okay. Hi. Hi. Okay. Now we are in a canoeing event. Internation's canoeing event. Actually, a while ago I talked to her about this, and she's really interested in what I'm going to say. Right? Yeah, because she is the one who is organizing the Internation's canoeing events to Lake Tarkos and Lake Durusu, near Istanbul. Okay, so we are in this canoeing event, and there are 30 people. And in each canoe there are 3 people. So we're paddling in the lake for 3 hours. And when I'm in the canoe with 2 other people, I talk to those 2 other people for 3 hours because there's nobody else to talk to. But then the canoeing is finished. And all the canoes come to land. And it's barbecue time and we're all hungry. And on land, I see this beautiful girl. I gotta go connect with her, right? I say, hi, Rasih, and I start talking to her. She listens to me, she even talks to me, she's very kind. And now the barbecue's ready. The barbecue's ready, so what do we do? Right? Okay, so Then go get your barbecue. Please go to the, there's barbecue. No, it's over there, it's over there. Go, okay, get your barbecue. All right, now, oh my. What do? I'm gonna make her my girlfriend, right? So I go next door. I'm the barbecue line, I go next to her and I say, now you take it, okay, you now you go, okay. You sit here, eat your barbecue. All right, go ahead. I'm not going to give up, right? So I don't have to. For 2 hours. For 2 hours, I pursue her and I talk. We even have a nice conversation. And yes, and we even flirted a little bit. And in fact, I got her phone. And she got my phone number.
Already kissed.
So,
Can I get the plate?
yes, of course. Yeah. So, what happened? I kept her busy. The next day, she was like this. The canoeing event, this guy, this family came. He just wouldn't go away. He just talked to me. He prevented. Never keep anybody too busy in any event. You see, 2 days after the canoeing event, I called her. She didn't answer. I texted her. She didn't answer. A few days went by. I called her again. I texted her again. She didn't answer. What happened? You kept her busy too long, you idiot. Never keep anybody busy too long. In a networking event or in a business networking event. Because people are there to engage in certain activities, to associate with friends, and to meet other people. By getting stuck on a person too long, even if the conversation is nice, we are preventing them from engaging in certain activities, talking to their friends, and meeting new people. And also, we're depriving ourselves from meeting other people and building a network. So these are the 7 mistakes that prevent effective connection. Now, I know that I'm already out of time, but just in 3 minutes, I'm going to get all these summarized very briefly. So what was number 1? It was, whenever we meet people, don't start the conversation with, what do you do, where are you from? Not even business networking events, because these don't break the ice, and they don't build a deep connection. To do that, before getting into these questions, we need to start in the first 3 minutes with general conversation and small talk. Okay. The other one was, number 2, let's mix them all up here. Okay.
Unit and assistance.
Back to back, number 2.
Yes. Hey, you remember better than me. Okay. Yes. We should not be asking too many questions, back to back. That's interrogating, that's not connecting, and that bores the person. That person will not want to see you anymore. The other one was, don't ask too many closed-end questions. They don't start a conversation. You can ask a few closed-end questions, but ask open-ended questions to get a conversation going. Okay, conversation lifeboats, right? Don't get into conversation lifeboats. That means, even if the subject is interesting, even if you're both interested in the subject, don't spend all night or all day speaking about one subject. That does not create connection, and you are very unlikely to call each other after the event. Instead, you should be moving from subject to subject. If it's not happening automatically, use conversational threads or hooks in the conversation. Conversational threads or hooks are words or groups of words in the conversation that you can take to move the conversation to another subject. All right. So, the other one was? Break the rapport at a low point. Don't wait for the conversation to get boring, to say, it was nice meeting you, and leave. Leave while the conversation is still interesting. Like we say in Turkish, sohbeti tadında bırakalım. Looking for common interests is another mistake. Don't limit your connections and networking only to people with whom you have common interests. And there's nothing wrong with talking about common interests, but if we talk only about common interests, we build surface connection. We should also listen to each other with respect in subjects that are not common interest. That builds deep connection, and we are much more likely to call each other and network after the event. Last but not least, unless you are a passenger on a bus or on a plane and sitting to somebody, next to somebody for 3 hours, of course you talk to that person. But if you are in a networking event, even if the conversation is very nice, don't keep the person busy too long, because that person will regret that you prevented them from connecting and will not want to talk to you. So these are the 7 most common mistakes that prevent effective connection anywhere, in business networking or social networking. I personally made all of those mistakes, and to a certain extent, I'm still making them, and I'm working on them. When you look at yourself, if you're not making any of these mistakes, congratulations, you must be a champion networker. If you are making some or any of these mistakes, then you should work on them. And despite the fact that you're not making any of them, if you still have problems in connecting, you should find those out and work on them. If we do that, we can become better conversationalists, better networkers, and better communicators. And thereby, take our place in the network of champions. So, let's do it.
Although it has been quite a long time, we are supposed to have a 5 to 10 minutes of question and answer session. If you have any questions to our
I'm open to questions.
speaker, he's open to answer.
Yes, go ahead. You're still filming, right? Media Master? Good.
On the hooks you mentioned,
Yes.
isn't it kind of rude to switch the conversation like suddenly?
That's a very good question.
How to balance that?
That's a very good question. Actually, because time is limited, I did not get into that detail. But it's not interrupting you and switching the conversation in an abrupt way to another subject. It's if the conversation does not flow automatically, if you see that an awkward silence is coming, if you see that there's nothing to talk about, then you take the hook to make a smooth transition to another subject. This happens automatically. Actually, when we're talking to our friends, we're always using, without realizing it, we're always using hooks and conversation threads. If it doesn't happen automatically, you of course don't interrupt the person. As long as the conversation is going, that's fine. But if the conversation is about to die, you rescue it from dying by taking a hook and continuing the conversation smoothly into another subject. That's it.
I have one.
Yes.
Is silence very like such a bad thing? Like because when you were talking about, you know, this, you don't want the conversation dying. Like, but should we be talking for the sake of talking?
No.
Sometimes we just start talking
No, exactly. No, actually, in other points, I criticized also talking endlessly.
Yeah.
See, as you know, in Toastmasters we learn how to use silence as a powerful tool. What I said in the beginning, awkward silence, and awkward and boring silence. I mean, not the type of silence that you use for communication, but sometimes you feel that the conversation either gets boring, or there's an awkward silence, you want to find things to talk about, but the other person is bored, and you are bored, you just can't find anything to talk about.
And sometimes it's just the way it is. Like, it's finished, it's finished. You should move to something else.
It doesn't. That's a problem. Okay, if you move to something else, that's fine.
No,
Like
but it's
this-
just, if it's not like you meet someone and then you talk for 15 minutes and then this awkward silence comes up, okay, then thank you, it was nice meeting
Well,
you, and you just
Every
leave.
silence is not equal. I'm talking about, instead of silence, I could say, the conversations go through phases, they get boring.
I
Don't
understand,
leave
Rasih.
at a boring moment. If you're going to leave it when it's still nice to talk to. Okay, that's it. It doesn't mean that every silence has to be boring and it's wrong. No, of course, we use silence also, because silence also transmits messages. But I'm talking about getting to, not leaving the conversation when there is an awkward silence, a boring silence, or the conversation gets boring. Leave it at a high point.
Let's take
Break
one
right
last
forward.
question from Berkay. Yes, please.
Yes, go
If
ahead.
there was a communication accident in the very beginning and the first impression was not perfect or the ones that we like, so is there any tactics that you have to come back to that person or leave that person and then come back later, or just forget it, or is there any approach that you like?
Okay, well, that's another subject that's outside of my speech, but still, let me say that if you believe that there is solid ground And if you are very convinced that there is no channel of communication with that person, of course there's no point in insisting. He might have insulted you, she might have insulted you, or you just don't click together. In that case, don't insist. But if you think that it can be, you can feel that. If you think that it can be fixed, just go ahead, fix it. But that's another subject. Do we take another question?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.